What is up? Welcome to this week's episode of the vanflip podcast. I am joined by Rick Jimenez, right? Close?
Jimenez, yeah, it's
Jimenez.
close enough.
I told you I'd fuck it up. Anyway, from the band Extinction A.D. and formerly of This Is Hell, Long Island hardcore band. They've got a new album coming out in October off Unique Leader Records. That actually is coming out.
August.
Yeah, never mind. I'm sorry. Yeah, this week. It's this week, but it's already out. So go check it out. If you haven't, you're a loser. Yeah. So Rick, welcome to the show, brother. I followed This Is Hell for some time, and it's been nice to see Extinction A.D. continue on, for the last decade or so. So welcome on.
Cool, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm always like, ooh, Lambgoat. I don't know what to expect because of Lambgoat's reputation, but I'm also like, I think that was more when I was like a kid or a kid in my 20s and early 30s. Like, I hope someone doesn't say something like bad about my band. Me personally, I don't give a shit. But like, this band stinks because A, B, and C. Like, well, actually, we're good because of that. Now, like, oh, somebody brought up Extinction A.D. I'm like, oh, fucking cool.
Yeah. Don't be worried about Lambgoat. It's still all just a little old website on the internet. However, we're all aware of the interesting stand-up comedians we have visiting on the daily to post some kind of horrible joke on the comments. So we're well aware of what the situation is.
And I like that.
Yeah,
let's go for it, man.
Well,
let's have some laughs.
Well, you're from a little rougher time, earlier hardcore time. New York. I mean, you could take a punch, you could throw a punch. I'm fully aware that you probably have tough skin, so I appreciate that. Whereas some people don't, but
Yeah, especially some people who like play that New York role have the thinnest skin on fucking earth, especially now.
Well, we won't get into who it may be, but you can elaborate. You could definitely elaborate a little bit, but yeah, I don't want to like call anyone out specifically, but yeah.
So, dude, being from New York and having like that whole point of view, like growing up in New York, or let's be honest, fucking Long Island, although everybody who claims, New York hardcore, New York City, you're all fucking Long Islanders and we know it. With that whole like bravado of I'm from here, so I'm so tough, and especially as the years go by, those people are fucking afraid of everything. What a weird thing to deal with. Like, oh my God, I love these bands. So, some of these bands I still love, but like never like looking up to the actual people, but at least holding them with a certain amount of respect, and then being like, one by one, you have no fucking brain. The only time you speak is to be insulting with the lowest common denominator, like bullshit, not even funny, like joke and remark. That's disappointing, man.
Yeah, that is very disappointing. But as to each his own. What do you think causes the thin skin up there? And is it the cold weather after a while? People just get used to, being begrudgingly or whatever.
You know what I honestly think it is? This is funny. Actually, I had this conversation with one of my friends today when I'm at work, where I have a camera watching me while I'm driving at work, and I'm like texting my fucking friend talking about this shit. And hey, let's go on a tangent right away. This could be said for the entire world, but I actually think hardcore, despite what people may or may not think, is a bit of a microcosm of the real world, or the outside world. Oh God, I'm gonna dig myself a hole in the first 2 minutes.
I'll grab the shovels
of this show. Everybody, I think, kind of grows up or not even grows up, comes up, especially through hardcore, or we can put this in punk or metal also. And they tell these stories of back in my day, and they embellish, and they embellish, and they embellish. And they get to a certain age where, like, they just believe the most embellished part of their story was, like, complete fucking fact. And then they base their entire personality about all these struggles that they went through. Like, I'm real proud of you that you wrote a book because it was a real entertaining book, but half of that shit is fucking fake and we all know it. And now pretending like those are the struggles I went through. And because I had to eat some spit Oreo from some fictional character, now I hate trans people and country is a new punk.
Times change. Crowds change. People may not remember the past. People are all fixated on just the name. Like a lot of these legacy bands do carry weight with their names, obviously, like I'm not going to say that band in particular, but many bands in general do. And, I think a lot of the youngsters may not know exactly what's going on in the history of that band. So they just, wear the shirts, buy the albums, see the shows.
And you know what? It's crazy because we just spoke like, hey, and I'm just coming in super hot, and I'm also like caffeinated as hell, and it's the end of a really long work day for me. But whatever. As far as like what you said, like younger kids and everything, I don't want to say all heavy music. All heavy music overall is for everyone. Hardcore is for everyone, but hardcore is led by the youth. So if you, in my opinion, if you have a problem, back in my day, it used to be like this, and now it sucks because of that. Guess what? It doesn't suck because of that. It's just passed you by. And that is okay. It is okay. But if you are a tried and true hardcore guy or girl, and you don't understand that you're complaining about the way it used to be versus the way it is now, like, you're fucking gone, man. Hardcore is youth music, and if you could stay young enough, despite being 45 or 75, to still find positives in that and attach yourself to it, then that's fucking great, because it should keep you young. And that way, I actually think, metal and punk is the same as hardcore. But I think it's crazy when people take youth culture that they experience in their youth and want it to change with them while they're becoming these whining old men. Get out of here. Stop being so fucking entitled. Be thankful that you went through that and were able to maybe plant some seeds for the next generation and the next and the next. That's what in my opinion, hardcore specifically, it's about the youth and what's next, while paying respect to the past, so long as that past deserves the respect.
Right.
And it's very easy to ruin the respect that you kind of cemented back in the day. I don't know about you. I'm a big wrestling guy.
I'm not a wrestling guy. Obviously, I do. Again, hardcore and metal and heavy music is just kind of synonymous with wrestling. So I grew up watching as a young teenager, preteen, young teenager. I definitely was watching like Sting, NWO Sting, and NWO Hulk Hogan, that time frame. So I definitely was into it then, but I kind of lost all love for it, I guess, at some point, and I never really got back into it. But being a part of Lambgoat and being a part of heavy music, yes, it's synonymous, and there are a lot of overlaps in the Venn diagram. So I do keep somewhat aware. I don't know like what's going on storyline wise or anything like that, but I kind of know what's up or who's who.
Well, my point is, it's being like a wrestling fan from the 80s and the 90s and being a fan of hardcore from the 80s and beyond, and punk from the 70s and beyond, and metal, etc. It's so difficult, these bands and these wrestlers that like I loved, like, okay, that whole separating the art from the artist type of thing. Dude, I struggle with that a lot, because there is a lot of bands, I love their music, I even love their lyrics. I'm like, I'm not gonna let this fucking asshole ruin what this band means to me, even though they're part of it. And I do the same thing with wrestlers, and sometimes I can get past it, and sometimes I can't. Sometimes I guilt myself for like being able to get over it. I can listen to Pantera, no problem, which is like, that's problematic as hell. And it's like, well, to me,
depending on who you talk about or talk to, yes.
Well, yes, but I mean, I understand, and music. I should say music and entertainment, dude. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's again, what are we? 3 minutes in?
We're 10 minutes in. We're already
10 minutes
daggers.
In. Went over a minute. Talked so much shit. Didn't talk 1 second about the band yet.
We get into it though. We get into it. But to piggyback off of what you were saying about the old men hardcore stuff, do you? Because you've been in bands for you've been in Extinction A.D. for over a decade now, and before that, This Is Hell. So, and growing up on Long Island, probably, cutting your teeth on some early hardcore shows and like weird venues on the in New York, I would assume. Like what do you think are some of the biggest changes in your time in hardcore? Not saying like what you hate or don't like, or hate or like, because we don't want to get you being the old man on get off my lawn type thing, and contradict yourself. But what are some changes that you have seen over the course of your fucking decades in this whole thing?
I kind of think it's like a little cyclical where hardcore gets big and then it kind of falls off a little bit and it gets big and it falls off a little bit. Changes, I think hardcore's always been such a big umbrella of, subdivisions of subgenres. I think it goes through waves of being accepting and unaccepting of let's have mixed bills and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like the most accepting now, on Long Island at least, than it's been since probably like my early days of being involved in hardcore. And I know that's so easy because everybody just glorifies their early days, but I'm not saying this is better or worse, because sometimes I think I would go to a show. I'm going to a hardcore show to see, One for One.
Yeah.
And then there'd be like a ska band and like a fucking emo band and be like, oh, well, I'm glad that there's all these different types of people here, but like I certainly don't want to see these two other bands. And then I feel like, let's say that's like the mid 90s or so, towards the late 90s, I feel like everything was so compartmentalized. Mm-hmm. There'd be like your like tough guy hardcore shows, which I think the term tough guy hardcore is so funny. And I thought about that today because I was listening to 25 to Life. And you'd see essentially, a 7-band show with Dr. Shays, and all 7 bands sounded so similar. And that was difficult for me when I first started playing in hardcore bands, because I didn't feel like my band fit in with anybody. So it was like, where the fuck can we play? We can't play the metalcore shows. We can't play the tough guy shows. We're too hardcore to play the punk shows, and we're kind of too punk to play the hardcore shows. That goes in and out, but like on Long Island now, for better or worse. Sometimes I don't think this is the best, but sometimes I think it's absolutely the greatest thing on earth. You're going to get these crazy mixed bills, or even if it's not mixed bills as much as it's mixed, maybe like types of kids. For instance, like we have a band on Long Island called Standstill. And they'll play with Pain of Truth, which is like fucking, how polar opposite can we get? And it's not even just, oh, that's cool, I used to see Saves the Day and Buried Alive play the same show, because it's like the same kids are psyched on both of these bands.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. Or I guess that's beside the point whether I think it's cool or not. But I mean, that kind of is a very Long Island thing. Now, like, again, I think that could be traced back. Even some bands like I said, did not like, that were hardcore-ish, but not really, but just were called hardcore bands because they played with the hardcore bands all the time. Sometimes I see these bands, twice a month. I'd be like, fuck this goddamn fucking band again. But like you said, it's besides the point whether I like it. It's not the Please Rick show. It's the, hey, everybody wants to have fun. Let's, a bigger army, which I absolutely agree with. So I mean, that's a big change. I don't want to say professionalism, because that sounds so
weird.
Yeah. But the kind of people knowing what's up a bit more, as far as like,
well, the internet.
And what'd you say?
I said, well, the internet keeps everyone, abreast of what's going on.
But I think that's super cool on Long Island with the metal bands and the punk bands, not just the hardcore bands, where you could have these mixed shows, and it's not like here's a hardcore show with a metal band, and then when the metal band plays, you have the Heshers moshing, and the hardcore guys are fucking clowning on them. And then the hardcore band plays, and everyone's playing karate, and the Heshers are clowning on them. That doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah. Well, because all the genres are kind of blending a little bit now. Speaking of the youth of today, they grow up, they grow up listening to all sorts of stuff, whether it's like, early Slipknot, early Hatebreed, early dying fetus or whatever. They are just ingesting all sorts of heavy music, and then they're regurgitating all that in a blender, and then boom, now we have there's a lot of hardcore influenced bands that are also metal bands, like a bunch of Maggot Stomp and a bunch of slam. Slam metal is almost basically not I want to say metallic hardcore, but it's definitely hardcore influence because you have slower breakdownish parts and stuff like that. And 200 Stab Wounds is a new band that's really big up and coming, and they do a lot of you can see a lot of influence from different genres. But that's what I kind of think was going on with the youths of today, no pun intended on New York hardcore. But they just are regurgitating whatever they've listened to and creating their own stuff and kind of putting everything in a blender and seeing whatever sticks. They don't want to sound. I would assume they don't want to sound like other bands that have either A, been out, or B, in their current in their current area or whatever. But a lot of the things, I think, a lot of, not that this is probably sounding horrible, but a lot of bands. I feel like a lot of earlier on music for everyone's generation all kind of sound the same, but also you listen to it enough to where you could find differences in the sounds of hardcore bands, of metalcore bands. So, now they're just putting stuff together that really hasn't been thrown together that much or that on that grand of a scale. So now we're seeing this, like you said, a flux. I think we're on a big upturn for hardcore and just heavy music in general. But, that's just my opinion.
I never would have thought the death metal influence would be so prevalent in hardcore at all. But then especially where it's not prefaced as, well, it's kind of like a hardcore-ish death metal thing. It's just straight up these bands, they just kind of exist, devoid of a tag, unless oh yeah, we're nerding out about music. Where if you have like you said, 200 Stab Wounds playing a show with Big Boy.
Yeah.
It's on the top of the flyer. It's probably not going to say death metal and hardcore meet, where 20, 30 years ago, that would probably be, the quote-unquote selling point of the show, or we have to, make sure we acknowledge this. Doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Come to the heavy show. And I think that is really cool. Especially being in a band that, depending on what type of show we play, people will come up to us and say, oh, it's so cool to hear a insert genre tag here band on this show. So if we play a more hardcore leaning show, people will be like, oh, it's crazy having this thrash metal band on this show. If we play a more thrash show, we'll definitely have people come to the table and be like, oh man, I just love pure New York hardcore. And it gets really out there, which I don't give a fuck what people call us. I just hope, people like our band.
Enjoy it.
Because it's more fun if they like our band. But if they don't like our band, that's actually also fine too.
You're not allowed to not like the band. You have to like the band.
Oh, yeah, especially because I'm fixated on how much shit I was talking at the beginning of this.
No, that's cool. That's fine. We're 20 minutes in. We're going to do a little bit more shit talking.
It is fine. I don't know if it's cool, but it sure is fine.
I should say, it's cool with me. I don't necessarily care. Yeah. But the other thing is, speaking of the differences between now and then and current climate of just in general, online discourse in hardcore or what. I don't know if you take a look at any of that or if you partake in any of that, but there's a lot of, and hardcore is kind of based in this, I don't know, do the right thing, be the better person, kind of DIY. There's a lot of morals that are attached to being in hardcore, not just the straight edge movement or the vegan movement or any of that, but I mean, those come from this little, not come from, but they are a part of this little world. My question is, back in the day, would there, you mentioned Big Boy, and Big Boy actually made me think about this because I think they played last year's FYA. But FYA just released their lineup and whatnot, and again, usually a mixed bill. They had Dying Fetus on, or yeah, I think no, Obituary was on, or what? God damn, Dying Fetus I think was last year's. But anyway,
Yeah.
so they just moved venues because they for the last couple of years they've been held at the the JCC in Tampa or whatever, and that's been a thing for like since 2019. But I guess a lot of people online were saying that they shouldn't do the show there because it's ties to Israel, yada yada yada, and a lot of people in the hardcore world not necessarily, but they kind of lean towards supporting the Palestinian movement and whatnot. Not that I'm trying to get whatever position you're in. I'm just trying to. Overall, the venue has not been changed, but they're looking for a new venue. How often was that something that maybe happened in the past? And because I don't necessarily remember it happening that often, or whether the internet obviously wasn't as prevalent, but it's really loud currently. But I also am from the world where I think it's only loud on like Twitter or on Instagram or whatever. I don't think it's really loud in the real world. But nonetheless, they're trying to move the venue. But like, how often was that kind of a thing back then? Or did it matter because there weren't that many places to have these kinds of shows?
No, it on Long Island, it definitely mattered. We had a couple of very progressive venues on Long Island. My earliest days, like even like just like caught the tail end of the PWAC, which was the People with AIDS Coalition. Essentially a warehouse. They did hardcore shows and metal shows, and they did raves, but it was all to raise money and awareness. And that was a big deal. Fucking Fugazi played there. We had a place called the Ethical Humanist Center, which same thing, raised money and awareness for all sorts of
causes,
progressive things that I like to associate with punk, where at least I started. So I don't believe that that's something new. In all actuality, I think the strong right-wing influence in underground music, that's new to me. It's not new that it exists, but it's new how strong it is. Now, I think a lot of that is based on this edgelord bullshit, which, God, hey, I remember being in third grade also. I'm going to do the opposite.
Well, I mean, it also could be that hardcore and heavy music is just getting bigger in general. And
agreed. Like I said before, it's also a microcosm for the real world.
Right.
The bigger it gets, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger with the internet, and that's fine. But that's fine when there is... I don't know how to say this without sounding so fucking goddamn stupid. I don't want to say, oh, you can say whatever you want, but there's consequences. I'm gonna knock you out.
Yeah, I get that. But I think like
you need to stand behind what you say and the positions that you take, and not once you say something because you're being reactionary and trying to get a rise out of people and like, well, if doing this is punk, then going against that is more punk. If you're going to use that, then when somebody comes back at you to write that off as, whoa, I'm just asking questions. Fuck off. We know exactly what the fuck you're doing, especially like these fringe edgelord fuckheads. Again, totally away from the question you said. But I do think, let me only speak for Long Island because that's where I was,
Sure.
born and bred, especially in punk and metal and hardcore. There's always been an awareness. And I think one of the big things that brought me outside of, I like these punk bands, I like the Ramones and I love Rancid and then here's Minor Threat. And then, if into hardcore, and that all for me initially stemmed with just metal bands. Going from that to, I want to get involved. a lot of that is what I assumed was kind of a built-in, maybe like journey towards enlightenment.
Yeah.
That is goes hand in hand with underground music. So now, as time goes on, especially in Extinction A.D. being more metal than anything else, like I said, I started playing in punk bands and I played in hardcore bands forever, and then doing Extinction A.D. being like, hey, we'll still play punk shows and we still play hardcore shows. We play metal shows most of all. That crowd is very different.
Yep.
And then especially like for us, the message of the band is very important. And I will talk about what songs are about on stage. And I will get sometimes shut up and play, or I will get like, fuck you, woke leftist, whatever. And hey, guess what, asshole? Maybe this band's not for you. Mm-hmm. And that might be from somebody who was just circle pitting and moshing for like 5 songs.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're upset because I'm like, hey, you know what? It's okay to be transgender. Oh my God, I'm blowing someone's fucking mind. And it's funny because I just like, oh, we're in this venue with these bands. I'm going to say what I want to say. And if you have a problem with it, that's totally fine. But like, shut up and play. Oh, guess what? Now I'm going to talk for another minute and a half. So it's tough the way things are evolving as far as not being in this. Everybody thinks like me, but on the other hand, that's not tough. It's almost like, yes, this is the fucking point. I don't want to just continuously preach to the choir. I have something to say, and the rest of us have something to say, and this is why we play outside of our practice space.
Yeah.
Especially as we get older, we don't live on the road. So it is a privilege to go and play shows, and it's a privilege to take off of work and get in the van with my buds and travel around. But the gratification of not just like, hey, this riff fucking rocks, right? And like, hey, cool, look at our cool shirt. Maybe you want to buy that and our fucking record. It's also, this is what this song is about. You may hear that and be like, hey, I'm not about that, but like, that's not what this song's about for me. Fine.
Yeah.
But if someone's going to be like, well, fuck you, I don't like you now because of what you're actually talking about, I don't give a fuck. Like, it's not for you then. And I'm not really very interested in like, oh man, I turned off the white power guy who was like, he didn't come to the show in a white hood, but he also like, he came to the show thinking that he could say this word and that word and act this way towards that person. Like, not while I'm playing, please.
I like how you were kind about it. Please, you were respectful. I like that. To kind of like touch base on some of the things you were saying just in the last couple minutes there, I think a lot of the, what attracted me to hardcore was, I hate saying like the word brotherhood because that makes it sound in a weird way, some angles in a weird way, but the camaraderie between everybody. And like, I guess for me, I grew up in Florida, so it's not necessarily like a super liberal area. I mean, there are definitely pockets in the metropolitan areas that are very liberal, but for the bulk of it, it is more of a conservative mindset. Mm-hmm. So, not that I am conservative, I haven't voted for a major party in over 2 decades, so I'm a fringe guy and I can laugh at both sides. However, growing up in my area, there were definitely, like I said, a lot of conservatives, and so I never, and this is probably like just stupid on me and just not really paying attention when I was a kid or going to shows, but like we all just kind of got along. We never really talked about like our party affiliations or anything like that.
Oh yeah.
There were definitely like, and again, there are some aspects of the hardcore scene that didn't vibe with me at certain times in different times in my life. Like straight edge wasn't really something that I grasped onto, or vegan, vegetarianism, and all that stuff. Although all that stuff was definitely around, you know what I mean? And your friends were, I just feel like, because like in the last like year or so, you see some tweets or some, and again, I don't think social media is the proper place to have an online discourse with someone to get your opinion and your point of view across and change someone's mind. However, you know, when someone just uses like 120 or 100 fucking whatever characters and just says like hard conservatives don't belong in hardcore, I'm like, well, or something along those lines. I shouldn't say just that, you know, but something like that. I'm like, God, that puts off like a lot of people that probably are into heavy music and that don't mind listening to a band opposite of their political beliefs, is because, like we were saying earlier, they separate this from that and yada yada. And I get that some sides can separate that more and some sides can't. I understand that, but you know, it's something that kind of hurts when I hurt when I see it, because I'm like, I never really, it was all so joined together back in the day. I feel like there's a lot more division in general, not just in hardcore, obviously, because social media is what it is. There's a lot more points being taken the wrong way and sides being shown differently and yada yada. So I get that, but I just hope that one day, you know, people can just be like, you know, that was a crazy decade. I think we're going to change. I've taken some mushrooms now, and you know, I've been introspective about me and my fellow man, and who cares, you know? But again,
I think that's where you get it, because I mean, everything we've spoken about right now, to me, none of that is political. It's social, and it's, like you said, how you treat your fellow humans. So, I mean, I have no political association either. And then even if I vote for person A, B, C, or D...
It's all fucked. It's all corporate. It's all fucked. It's all whatever.
Nobody is immune to scrutiny. Even, say, if I vote for, you know, even when I fucking voted for Ralph Nader, or... if just say he would have won, it's not like, oh, well, now whatever you do is great. It's not a fucking sports team. But even so, like, that's politics. Now, to me, disagreeing with somebody's existence as a human, that's not politics. That's like, goes against everything that drew me away from just, man, I love Metallica and Pantera and Slayer, to, oh, wait, Minor Threat is different. And fucking the Dead Kennedys is different, you know, and not just sonically, like what they're saying. That acceptance and not being so staunch in, oh, well, I was indoctrinated into this, and now that I'm 13...
Yeah.
I can't change my mind. Like you learn and you evolve, and
well, I think on that aspect, I think a lot of people don't really realize, because like I didn't realize this. I just grew up in the 80s, 90s, you know, as a teen and 20-year-old. But like in reality, music is the kind of, like, not all, I mean, hardcore is definitely in its infancy, even though it's been around 4 decades or something like that. But you gotta, like, I think a lot of people need to understand that the generations before you and I were like archaic, and like our generation is a little different in the aspect of like the 80s and 90s were crazy times too, and a lot of different things were going on, and our grandparents and parents are raised in a different way, so they're a little off. And then like as time goes on, right, it gets a little more loosey-goosey, as like, you know, there's a lot of iPad kids out there now that are going to be like fucking losing their mind in 10 years, and that's going to be a different person to interact with, a different person to get along with in 10, 15 years or whatnot. And it's just like, I think people just don't look back to the past and understand that, like, you know, definitely people can change, and things do change for the positive more times than not. Because again, if you look around, right now is the best time to be alive in history in general, and I think a lot of people forget that. Yes, there are bad things going on, but there's always been bad things going on.
We're just more aware of it now because the internet is so prevalent.
Right, correct. And it's just, again, that's an onboard of just dog shit every day that you probably don't need in your life, but yet here we are addicted to it. But I just think like a lot of young people just don't realize that people who listen to music, especially people who listen to our kind of music, are also evolving. And we weren't around 100 years ago. So there's a lot of, like, you know, learning still going on.
And, dude, evolution takes a while. Sometimes I think, like, oh, man, evolution now because of what is afforded to us. should almost be like exponential as opposed to a straight linear. And it's not. I think we've made some leaps, but sometimes I'm like, man, why can't we just go faster? And I mean like the evolution of like our fucking brains,
right?
But also like
because I don't think a lot of people. I think there's a lot more people, for one, a lot more people than there was when we were kids, right? Just the population's grown, and I don't and not that people are like less intelligent, but sometimes that people think are less intelligent because they're just not drowning out, but just like, you know, getting out, escaping their day-to-day work, and they're just like, you know, mind numbing themselves, you know, just distracting themselves. And so, you know, we never had that option when we were kids. We were just like stuck with our own time.
Well, yes, I agree. And also, every single thing that I'm saying and have said this entire time, I mean, like, this is all just like how I think about things maybe all the time, but also like right in this second. And like, not like anything I'm saying is like everybody should just think exactly how I am. It's just how I think, you know.
Well, the world wouldn't be cool if everyone thought the same. You know what I mean? Like
of course,
the reason why it's so unique and why stuff is exciting and whatnot is because there are differences of opinions and differences of mindsets and different people in general. And, you know, that's what America's based on. You know, if you really think about it, you boil it down. You live in New York. It's a melting pot of cultures. And, you know, that's, I think, I just don't think like shunning people is the way to go about it. But that transcends not hardcore. That transcends a lot of other things. But let's wrap up this weird conversation. Let's get into some band stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I was going to just get on a tangent.
No, I mean, like, I went with you, so it's fine. I'm
going to punish this guy with my fucking caffeinated rambling.
I'm going to go back and be like, oh my God, that Rick guy, dude. Super political. Anyway.
Or just like, oh my God, what a prick. You know, it's so funny. I say to my wife sometimes, like, for some reason, like, I always get pegged as the bad guy in these, and it's, yeah, because sometimes you don't shut the fuck up.
Yeah, you just talk a lot. And then when you talk.
I sure do.
And when you talk, you're like, I got to back that point up. I do the same thing, you know, I mean, like, it took me forever. This is the 160th episode or something like that of this podcast. It took me about 100 or, you know, like 70 episodes to just shut the fuck up. And I'm like, if they talk more, I can just hang out and, you know, then they just bury themselves. And I just kind of like don't repeat myself and don't sound like an idiot as much. But I digress. Yeah. Rick, you are getting ready to go out. You just said you don't go on tour that often, so you play shows here or there, but you are actually hitting the road. By the time this is out, I think you have like a week or two, or it'll be that week or the week before. You're setting out with Assault for a little run, and you're going to be playing Full Terror Assault and RPM Fest along the way. Are those are those the first shows of the year, or because you said you guys don't get to play that often? I'm trying to check again.
Yeah, we chilled out quite a bit this year with the prep of the album and everything else, and we hit it hard last year. So, like, we don't need to go nuts this year. Mm-hmm. Everybody could kind of get their lives in order, which is difficult. I mean, dude, we're still a young band, even though the band's been around for, like, at this point,
you're hitting your stride.
11 years.
Yeah, I mean, getting your stride.
And, you know, I'm going to turn 44 in a couple of days, and I still feel like a young guy. I know I'm not, but I feel like one.
Is that weird, though? Is that weird? Didn't you always think, because I also am going to be 41 next month, but, like, I just looked at 40-year-olds when I was younger in my earlier days, like, fuck, dude, you're old as shit. Like, my dad was always just so fucking outdated and old. Yet here I am at 40 going like, I still listen to hardcore and I still fucking do everything that I did when I was a teenager.
Yeah, but you know what? Instead of that being like, oh shit, I'm fucked, it's like, no, that is so cool. Today, every Wednesday after work, I go to the comic book store, and I thought about that the other day. I
fucking
said,
nerd.
Yo, I'm about to be 44. And after work, I'm driving to the comic book store still. And instead of that being like, oh my God, you stupid little dork, it's like, no, this rocks. This is like, when I was 13, I was like, hoped I would still do that.
Have you done it the entire time since like 13, or did you kind of like break away from it at all?
On and off. On and off.
Okay.
But
what are your go-to comics?
So right now, I am just focused on the relaunch of all the X-Men books, from the Ashes story. So
Do you collect the cards by any chance?
not since the 90s.
I did. Like, there were a couple Marvel cards that I was like super into, and I unfortunately got back into collecting baseball cards in the last year or two, and they're all sitting. That's why I blurred the camera, because I don't want my nerdery to be seen. But I have all these cards that I would buy, and I sell them on eBay. The ones I don't care about, so I can buy the ones I care about, right?
Yep.
But dude, I keep seeing these Marvel cards that I used to have. I don't even follow fucking X-Men anymore, or like comic book stuff. But I'm like, just like, I remember they were like the masterpieces,
Marvel
ones.
Masterpiece.
So they'd have the 9. You'd put them in your little booklet of 9 cards, and the page would make like a complete big thing. I'm like, dude, they're releasing more of those now, but I'm like, do I want to go back and buy a whole set of just like those early Marvel? Because I never had the whole set, but now as a grown man, I can do that.
Yeah, and the answer is yes, you do want to do that.
I don't know if I want to.
But yeah, we did a little tour in May. We did a handful of shows with Salem Trials in Canada. Most of the shows we did were in Canada. They might have been like a week or a week and a half run there, because we put out an EP in I believe April, so we supported that in May, and the record August 16th came out to the Detested on Unique Leader Records, and we're hitting the road August 30th. We play Rhode Island. Next day we play RPM Fest in Massachusetts. Handful of shows here and there with some cool bands. We're doing Full Terror Assault. We did RPM one time before. We did Full Terror Assault one time before. And this is Full Terror Assault's last year. So really, really psyched we were able to do this on their last year. And we are out with Assault from Cleveland, which is a really cool thrash band. One of our earlier tours, maybe 2 or 3 years in, we met those guys. Just playing a show with them in Cleveland, like, this shit's cool. And we always stay in touch, like, we should do shows. And it just never worked out until, hey, we're going to go out on a tour. We're not going out with anybody else or supporting anybody else. It's like, hey, let's bring out another band. Like, hey, you guys want to hook up for about a week? 10 days? Like, oh, cool. So there it is. We're going to have a good time. Our official record release show is going to be the last show of the tour, which is at home for us, Long Island at Amityville Music Hall. And that's with a stacked lineup. Sworn Enemy,
nice.
Overthrow. I don't know if you're familiar with Overthrow or not. They're, in my opinion, like really big Long Island hardcore band in the, I'll say late 90s, early 2000s. Okay. Stopped playing for a little while, and they're back. They're putting out a new EP, one song at a time. Assault, I think it's their first time playing Long Island. And our Sarcophagus, which is a newer Long Island death metal-ish band, and it is Sarcophagus. I'm not mispronouncing Sarcophagus.
I was going to ask.
Yeah. And it's going to be cool. Really excited to go on this tour, play some new songs, have the new record with us. By the time this airs, we have 3 singles, 3 videos out, a little I guess documentary-ish type of thing, a little 4 or 5 minute video for the last single that was released called Burnt Sienna. So we got a whole bunch of shit. And then after that, we'll kind of see what comes up. We have some loose plans, but nothing to talk about.
Nothing
just
finite. Yet. I get you. Not letting the goat know. I understand. So speaking of new singles, and playing those out, you guys had a newish single last month with Matt Heafy. Or no, that was a previous. Not that was a previous single, but you had one with Matt Heafy of Trivium.
Yep.
How did that come about? And like, was it always kind of like a goal to work with Matt, or was it select few of people and then he happened to be available, or the timing just was right, or whatever?
You know what? For one reason or another, Matt's just kind of been like a supporter of the band since the beginning. I wouldn't, not like he was going out of his way to fucking champion the band, but like, talking to each other on the internet, or, DMing or whatever the fuck.
Way to sound young, Rick.
Yeah. And he has his radio show, so it's like whenever we put out new singles, he's always put us on his radio show. When I was when I started recording the Culture of Violence record, our third record, I was like shopping around for a new guitar interface, and he put me in touch with the company of the interface that he just cool stuff like that. Like, you don't need to help me out, whatever. I'm
How'd you guys
but-
like link up to begin with? Because obviously, I think he is from Orlando, or at least Trivium's based out of Orlando, and you guys are in New York. So like, did you guys just like happen to run into each other on the internet? I mean, on in the real world somewhere, or just on the internet?
Nope, just on the internet.
Is he a fan of This Is Hell or something like that, or how did he?
You know, I know he knows Travis, the singer of This Is Hell, was also like our, pseudo manager. Oh, he's our fucking manager. I shouldn't have put pseudo in there. Fuck you, Travis. Sorry.
He's the man on Twitter. He's always on Twitter doing the Twitter thing.
Dude, he's very helpful because he loves to use the internet and like do that thing.
You got to have one of those guys. You got to have one of those guys in the band. Can't all just be off of the internet.
So I mean, he's always in touch and whatever the fuck. So when we were writing this record, especially this song, I was like, we've never had a guest appearance on any of these songs, and I never wanted to overuse that because I feel like it's so like it can get so corny real quick.
Yeah, but so, hardcore is so much like rap. There's so many features in rap. There's gonna be features in hardcore, you know.
I appreciate you lumping us in with hardcore bands because if you talk
are
to certain
from the
people,
hardcore,
like,
but you are from the hardcore world. You know what I mean? So like, and when and like you said earlier, I think hardcore gets, or a lot of stuff gets lumped into hardcore. The hardcore scene is just everything to me. Like as far as it's metalcore, it's everything adjacent. You know what I mean? I just refer to it as hardcore, even though like people might get confused and think like techno hardcore or that kind of EDM type hardcore, but it's all about the scene. Because like you do straddle. Obviously, there's metal influences in the band, obviously, clearly, but you're from the hardcore world, so.
So at one point I was like, I think this song, would be cool if Heafy did a part. So I was like, hey, I have this little thing if you want to do it. She's like, oh yeah, totally. So, all right, cool. Just, hey, here's lyrics and a little bit of a demo and whatever the fuck. And then he just banged it out and said, hey, is this cool? I said, yeah, that is super cool. Then when we were about to do the video, I was like, I don't want to like keep bothering. Hey, do more stuff for us. I was like, hey, we're planning on doing this video where we're essentially going to do, remember the fucking COVID? Hey, everyone's playing their guitar in a different state. Say, hey, we're essentially going to do that, but we're just going to do it with nicer cameras and edit it. Like, you want to do your part for the video? I said, yeah, totally.
Well, he's got the whole setup, yeah. So
there it was. So that was cool. It was gratifying. Like, I think it came out sick. It was also a cool first single because I think people always expect us to play like thrash beat, 210 BPM, and I don't think we play fast in that song once. So hey, here's something different. That's cool. And then our second single where
back to
blasting away.
Back to it. Speaking of internet shows, I think you mentioned Heavy having one. You guys had a podcast for a while, and you mentioned it right before we got on here. But like, what was the basis of starting that podcast, and then whatever ended up happening to it? Just it got too tedious, which I totally understand.
So I had a podcast during COVID because hey, it's COVID. There's nothing to I can't hang out with my friends. So I'll do a podcast. But are you referring to It's Go Time You Asshole, our YouTube show?
We have a story where you guys created a podcast. Hold on, I'll go right to it. Like 2021.
Okay, yeah. So right when essentially like lockdown ended, we're like, yo, let's go. We have all this new shit. We're gonna do a new EP. We're gonna do a new record, whatever. But also, we brainstormed this idea, like, yo, let's do a fucking YouTube show. It's a podcast-ish.
Right.
Did it for a while. Once we started touring on Culture of Violence, it's like, oh, we missed a week. We missed another week. Like, yo, we're never fucking getting back to this. We're like, yo, why we stop doing this? So we restarted doing it once I moved into where I live now. You could say I'm actually on our fucking set. So yeah, the show is called It's Go Time You Asshole.
Yes, that's the one we talked about. That's the one I had to look it up, but that's the one. Yep.
Yeah, I think we have. Can you see this? This little koozie.
Oh, look
Go
at that,
Time
look
You
at
Asshole koozie. We actually recorded a new episode 2 days ago. So there's no consistent schedule. We just record them when we can. We edit them and put them on the internet when we can. But Shit's fun, man. It's fun to hang out with us in the band without, okay, we're practicing. Let's learn this song. Let's, blow out my voice. Like, hey, you're not playing that guitar part right. Like, hey, let's hang out. We're going to drink a surprise energy drink. Even the guys who don't like them. We're going to get caffeinated. We're going to say some dumb shit. If I'm not, whatever. I'm not being careful. If I'm just let off the reins, I'll talk a lot of trash.
Yeah.
And we have a good time and, fuck around. So by the time this show airs, hopefully our newest episode will be up. The last episode that we just aired, we did fictional sports teams. So it was kind of like a game. That was fun as hell. And this last time we're like bullshitting about reality TV, but it's not like, hey, what's your favorite reality show?
I love Housewives. Me too.
Yeah. We're coming up with like some crazy situations and what would you do in this and stuff like that. So it's a good time. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of laughs.
Yeah. Speaking of being like sporadic with the episodes, dedicating an I've done this podcast since 2018. I took a year off in like 21, but that's because I was talking to Alex about taking over Lambgoat, so I didn't want to like add to the value of the website whilst doing that, make it harder on myself. In my, because the podcast is so popular. But anyway, dedicating your time to making an episode every week for a year is fucking insanely hard. And I've not, like I said, since 2018, I have yet to go 52 episodes in a year. I've gotten 50. I've done 50, but banking them, like I'll bank them in a week or whatever, and then have like 2 weeks off or 3 weeks off, and that'll be a breather. But then I got to get back into the whole doing podcasts. And I talk to so many different people, like, whereas you with your friends or you, whatever, people doing it with people in person, that's got to be a totally different lifestyle because I got to meet random people on the internet and then be like, hope they're cool with me. And then we'll get this conversation going.
Yeah. And like we've experienced, you have no idea which way it's going to go.
Right. But I'm along for the ride. But I learned that after a while. I learned that I can't direct the conversation because the people don't want that. They want to hear the other people go on a tangent. But before I cut you out of here, there's a couple more things I want to touch base on. I know you guys had canceled This Is Hell. You still are doing This Is Hell too, right?
Yeah. We actually we're recording
some stuff.
We're recording a new EP. We have a 5-song EP that at some point will surface. But we won't just like throw it up like we did the last couple things that we recorded. We'll like let people know, hey, this is a fucking thing that's going to exist. But we were supposed to go to Europe in August. Mm-hmm. We share a lot of members with Extinction A.D.
Right. You got like half the band in there. I get it.
Yeah. So
but Mike had like an injury or something like that, so he
our drummer Scuzz like fucked up his wrist, and it was kind of like, if I go and do this, speaking as him, if I go and do this, like I might permanently fucking hurt myself, and either way I got to go to the doctor and get this and that fixed, and there's like a long recovery time and all that shit. So it was kind of like, this just, it's a bummer, but like, what makes sense? Let's risk an injury and, there already was an injury, but let's risk like permanent fuck-uppery, or, hey, we got to bite the bullet and cancel this shit, and then in a month and a half, you'll be good to go. So that was like the smart decision.
Yeah. And not to just glance over you saying about new music, I want to now get into that a little bit, but like, so you guys, like, you're planning for a 5-song EP. Do you have any timeline of like when, like, is all that written and recorded, or do you still have work to do on that front? And then do you have a date or a timeline in your head?
There's no timeline now because Scuzz hurt his wrist, but I mean, okay. Everything else is recorded. All we got to do now is record the drums and then mix the thing. But all the instruments and vocals and everything is fucking recorded. And because it's 2024, you don't need to do things in the same order as you did when I was like younger. Like, hey, you got to record the drums, then you got to record the bass. Like,
is that something is that something you're putting out at your own, or are you going to do it through a label, or?
No, we are not putting it out ourselves.
Okay, just making sure.
But when
the time is right, the world will know.
Yeah, and it'll it's pretty cool.
Okay, that's good.
It'll be pretty cool.
Hey, that's cool.
And we have 2 shows in October. We're doing some shows with that It Dies Today, 18
Yes.
Visions,
Yeah,
Walls of Jericho, right? I think. So that'll be fun. I mean, we played a handful of shows this year. I think a handful, maybe like 1 or 2 or 3 or something.
You pop up every now and then. I see. I post a couple things every now and then.
Which is you know what's so cool? Playing guitar without having to be the singer. Like I kind of forgot how like, oh man, I'm just gonna like have fun with no real responsibility. Sometimes it's like take it for granted. Like this song is like 20 years old, and like, oh wait a minute, like chill out a little bit. You still got to play the song. Like, all right, yeah.
No,
I'm like stuck to a microphone all the time with Extinction AD, and I'm playing harder stuff on guitar while singing really, really poorly. Where This Is Hell, I'm playing like what's the easiest shit now, and like just bouncing around and having like so much fun.
It definitely, being in front of the microphone hinders your live performance. I would assume. So I can understand the frustration.
You know what? That puts a negative context to it. It's not negative at all. It's just very, very different.
Yes. I'll give you that. Different. I was going to say different, but yeah, we'll leave it at that. Yeah, now, cool. I have to touch base on this because I'm a giant fan of this band, and you are also in the same neighborhoods as this band, but you guys were lucky enough last year or earlier this year or last year, I can't remember, I think December was the time frame. You guys played 30th anniversary of Glassjaw. So how did that come about, and what was that like?
I mean, especially Travis. Like, Travis has been friends with those guys forever. So, I mean, we played, I think some of our earliest shows were with Glassjaw. I think we did like 5 or something shows with them in, it might have been 2005 or something. In all actuality, like, I feel like a lot of people found out about This Is Hell just like through us playing these couple of Glassjaw shows. In 2004 or 5. I'm pretty sure it's 2005. Also does not matter. Which is so crazy to me because like This Is Hell here and Glassjaw over here, but like as far as sonically, I feel like we're so different. But then we had Daryl from Glassjaw sang on our first EP and then again on our first full length This Is Hell stuff. So I think it was just that they asked us to play. Hey, you want to play this show?
Yeah, I wonder if it was a no-brainer for them, just because it's a pretty monumental show. They did the shows in different areas too, but it's a pretty monumental show for a band, and so I just am curious as to like if I had Dillinger on, I would ask them like, hey, why'd you choose these openers for your shows?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just was curious as to how that even came about. I mean, granted, yes, I would I definitely know that you guys are in the same neighborhoods, so there's definitely some overlap between either people or knowing each other. So, but I was just curious as to like what maybe made them choose you guys. Not saying that you guys aren't deserving. I'm just just curious.
Well, I mean, I don't know if we were deserving because it's not. I mean, since 2013 and that was December 2000. Okay, so 10 years later, I think in those 10 years we might have only played like 12 shows. So there probably were younger bands that could have like used that rub, but I had a good time.
Yeah,
I'm glad we were able to play. I had a lot of fun with my friends, and so it was cool. And I appreciate stuff like that. Like sometimes I almost feel bad because like there's probably, like you said, a more deserving band. And I
didn't say that there's a more deserving band.
Oh well, I'm saying there were more deserving bands and probably younger kids that like it would have really been like the biggest deal on earth for them. Oh my God, I'm playing with Glassjaw, and like what a rub for these, a younger band, and like, ugh, this fucking dusty old, 12 shows in the past 10 years. This Is Hell. Like, I haven't liked them since Sundowning, especially that show. We had played a couple shows earlier, in 2023, and we were playing like all old stuff,
right,
and like mostly Sundowning stuff. And I said, I know that's what everybody wants to hear, and I'm cool with that, but like, I really want to play some of the other stuff. I know nobody probably wants to hear any of the like more metal This Is Hell stuff, but like,
chill, dude. They can go see your other band anytime.
Yeah, I was like, I'd like to play some of the other stuff because like, I don't feel like. I don't always want to play all this shit on sundowning. And dude, that's been a lot of This Is Hell's detriment. The fact that, like, yes, I know everybody likes this stuff, but, like, I'd rather play this other stuff because it's more fun. It's like, yeah, but nobody fucking cares. Like, yeah, but I care and it's more fun. So we did the stupid thing and played a whole bunch of, like, quote unquote newer stuff, like not sundowning stuff at that show. And surprisingly, like, it went over well and people were psyched and people, like, knew Acid Rain and Bloodlines and The Enforcer, which are, like, later era This Is Hell songs.
Well, now you have that in your back pocket for when you're in band meetings. Be like, well, remember that one fucking show, guys?
Oh, and the thing is, nobody argues anyway. I think for the most part, we're going to play This Is Hell. Like, what do you guys want to play? Like, oh, well, what do you want to play? And I'm also the, like, well, hey, I want to play this because of this, that, and everyone's like, all right, I don't give a fuck. Let's just play whatever.
It's a good camaraderie in the band. I don't care. Let's just do that.
Yeah, let's just have some fun. So, yeah, that show was a lot of fun. And I'm sure we'll have fun at those other shows in October.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, depending on when this is airing, Extinction AD is having so much fun playing shows in August and September. Because
this will be out, I think, next week, so they'll have a week to get tickets, and you can find them on the website.
Cool, because, dude, we're psyched. Like I said, as abrasive and obnoxious as I have been for the past hour, when it really comes down to it, especially once we play outside of our practice space, the whole point is to, like I said, get our message across, but we want to have fun. And I want other people to have fun. Even when, like I said, I will talk about what these songs are about, and I'll even say, hey, this song is about A, B, and C, and blah, blah, blah. But the reason why we're all here in this room is to have fun, because we're bogged down by oppression and authoritarian bullshit and fucking divisiveness on the outside. Yep. Now that we're in these four walls, or unless we're in some fucking octagon-shaped place, let's have a fucking good time. Let's let our energy out and all the same cliche bullshit everybody says. But man, I fucking mean it, because we're all leaving our families and our jobs that make money and losing a ton of money to go on tour because we want to have some fucking fun. So hopefully people want to have fun with us also. And hey, if people have, like, a problem with things that I'm saying or stand for lyrically and on stage, hey, I'm selling our shit every day. We could have a conversation. We could have a conversation where we disagree with each other. It's not going to come to blows or name calling or whatever, unless you start to become offensive. But hey, doors open for you to become offensive with me. You know, we'll just whatever. And you know, I'm at the age where I have no intentions of ever stopping playing music and never stopping playing shows, local and otherwise. But I am also cognizant that who the fuck knows what's going to happen. So I treat every show I'm playing like it might be the last opportunity that I ever get to play live. And I would say since the last... we never had a last show with This Is Hell, but the last time we said, yo, we're going to chill out for a bit, and I'm going to do this other band. I've never taken a single show for granted, because This Is Hell was such a quote-unquote career band. Not that we were making tons of money, but it was like...
Well, you did. That's what you did.
Like, made tons of money. Yeah, and that's why I'm...
No, I mean, the band was what you guys were doing at the time, full time.
Yes. It was, everything came second. We were on tour 9 months out of the year. Knowing that Extinction AD, even if we tried to do that, we were starting from scratch. It might not ever become that. I said, I will now treat every single show like it might be my last show. So I'm going to enjoy every bit about it and not have any of those hang-ups of, oh no, only X amount of people came to this show and this label might think we're falling off here, which is crazy because, like, people think metal bands are, oh, you're the fucking career band, and hardcore is, oh, you're just fucking around with your friends. And
it used to be, but now it's different. It used to be like that kind of.
Yes, it is very different now. But even then, it started to feel, and this was a lot of the reason why I wanted to chill on This Hell. It started to feel like there was too much pressure from a, I guess, career point of view. I was like, yo, that's not why I do this, and I understand that it's the nature of the beast. Anyway, this new album is coming out, and we're so excited to support this new album. And everybody says, our new album is our best album. And guess what? I think that also. And if you don't think that, then maybe you need to work harder on your new album. Now, I'm not saying everybody else is going to think this is our best album,
right,
but I think it's our best. So it just gives me that much more incentive I cannot wait to tour on this record. I cannot wait to play some of these new songs. Can't wait to see some of these people that we see every time we play in Cleveland, and then some new people that we'll hopefully see. I'm really excited to spread our message, and I'm really excited to just play these songs for the meathead version of, man, this fucking riff kicks ass. So hopefully other people, are excited because they heard our single with Heafy and they never heard of us before. And then they dove into our second single and then our third single, which is very, very, by this time it's out, the third single, Burnt Sienna. I am speaking Spanish or singing in Spanish on the song. We have lots of Latin percussion in the song, but then it's also a heavy, hardcore, metal, ripping Extinction A.D. song. It would be nice to open some new ears and minds, and hopefully we will see those people on this tour and other shows in the future. But, like you said, man, during your 40s, you're doing a lot of things that you did when you were a teenager. I have the same, if not more, enthusiasm for music than I did, when I was 15 and starting my first serious band. It means that much or more. And I really hope to share it with people. And after sharing it with those people, hopefully we have a common bond. And if it's divisive for other people, then we have that divisive bond, or whatever the fuck you would call that. But yeah, man, like I said, we're psyched. I'm 44. I feel like I'm 16.
Might be all the energy drinks, but hey, you're still feeling it.
What was that?
It might be some of those energy drinks, but hey, you're still feeling young.
Oh, it's not might that. It's absolutely that, man. I'm fucking running wild like Hulkamania in the 80s on 300 milligrams of caffeine right now, but I'm not anything else like.
Do you, Rick? It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, like I was just saying, do you, Rick? Don't apologize for who you are. You don't have to do that at all. That's just who you are, and people can love it or hate it. Either way, they will remember you. I'm like
Gambit,
No, hey, at least you're, well, I don't know. Not Channing Tatum trying to talk like Louisiana guy, but apparently he's from there.
No. Yeah, I'm more X-Men 97 episode 5 Gambit. Yeah.
The smaller Gambit, not the big Hulk-looking Gambit.
No, I'm actually, I feel like I'm more Wolverine than anyone else. I'm same height, a little less hairy, but not that much.
No, I mean, you work out. You have some traps busting out of that little tank top, or the so I see it.
Yeah, this light actually, I feel like makes me look older than I actually look. The gray in my beard is good. So I'm like old man Logan a little bit.
We got some pepper and some salt and pepper, but
I also feel like the angle of this camera is like shrinking my traps.
No, I mean they're popping pretty good. I complimented the man's traps on air, so it is what it is. I've got to go work on mine, so there's that. But yeah, Extinction A.D. To the Detested, that'll be out August 16th through Unique Leader Records. They're going on tour for a handful of dates in August, September, so go check that out. And like Rick has just elaborated, This Is Hell may be having some announcements in the near future, so look forward to that as well. If you need any help premiering any of those cool new tracks for This Is Hell, just, let me know. We can definitely sign that up and hook that up. But yeah, Rick, thanks for your time today. I appreciate it, and best of luck with everything coming up in the near future.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you giving me a platform to potentially alienate people. But, man, I'm too old to pull punches.
Hopefully no one hates you now, but if they didn't hate you before, they're not going to hate you now.
I don't know if anybody knows I exist enough to hate me.
That's probably good. Just keep under the radar, you know what I mean? All right, have a good one, brother.
You too, man. Thank you.